So you are at our very first SIP session for 2022. And we are starting it off with our Executive Director of the MBA programs here at Rady, Silvia McCallister Castillo. And I'm going to introduce her in just one moment, but I wanted to let you know what a SIP session really is. I'm drinking a bubbly water. Essentially, where did that show up? This is just a time where we can focus on a certain aspect of our MBA program and allow all of you to ask questions, hear others' answers, and really get a better sense of the specific component of our program. And tonight it will be about the curriculum, what separates us given that we are a STEM program, and a little bit about our teaching methodologies. So I am going to talk about our wonderful fearless leader, Silvia McCallister Castillo. She is, again, the executive director of our MBA programs. And she has she's had a long career in higher education. In the past 10 years, she's actually been working in business schools in 4 countries. First was in Masters of Management at IE Business School in Madrid, the EMBA Global and Sloan Fellows Program at London Business School, which of course is in the UK, the MBA for Executives at the Yale School of Management, and the MBA programs at the University of Hong Kong. So she has a breadth of knowledge that not only helps us, but helps me along the way as well. So I'm going to open the floor for Silvia to talk a little bit about what our curriculum and what we do here at Rady.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Kristina, for the very nice introduction. And thank you for everyone who made it here tonight. I'm going to introduce Rady. I'm going to introduce UC San Diego. I'm going to talk a little bit about the MBA program, but I want to make sure to leave a lot of time for questions at the end. So once I finish, I'd love to hear from you. That's what makes these SIP sessions a lot more interesting. And I look forward to learning what's on your mind. So as Kristina said, my name is Silvia. I'm the Executive Director for MBA programs at Rady. I'm delighted to speak with you and answer all your questions about UCSD, Rady, the MBA, the curriculum, whatever's on your mind. So first of all, in my role, I work quite closely with the admissions and recruitment team, so with Kristina and Gerard. I work quite closely with the student affairs team, faculty, especially with on matters of curriculum. I work with the careers team, and I'm very lucky to get to work with the alumni relations team, which is really exciting. We are a small, dynamic, young school, and we're really lucky to have a close-knit network of alumni who are really passionate about seeing us and seeing our students succeed. First of all, I'd love to introduce UC San Diego. So Rady, as I mentioned, is a young school. We just turned 18 this year. And UC San Diego is also a fairly young institution. It was founded in 1960, and it was founded with a really strong focus on math, science, and engineering. So the school was designed to grow the UC system's expertise in those areas. So it was really always planned to be a very STEM-heavy school. We're a young school, but we're considered already to be a public Ivy, and we're the school that's moved the fastest up the ranking tables of any school in the US. We've had 16 Nobel Prize winners teaching on campus. For those of you who are very, very nerdy about economics, which is really exciting, Harry Markowitz, who won the prize in 1990 for economics, he teaches at Rady. If you include all of our researchers and our alumni alongside our faculty, we have 27 Nobel Prize winners in our community. We also have a lot of really prestigious alumni who you may have heard of, and a hugely diverse set of industries, including Craig Venter, who's well known for the Human Genome Project, Nick Woodman, who founded the company GoPro. Many of you might have a GoPro, might be excited about that. Mike Judge, the director of the movie Office Space, which I guess really dates me because I really love that movie, but he also created the show Silicon Valley, which some of you might have watched. And Vivian Ming, she's a theoretical neuroscientist and an AI expert who founded Sokos Labs, all UCSD graduates. Personally, I think one of the coolest benefits of the Rady MBA is that we do allow all of our students to take classes outside of Rady across the other graduate and professional schools on campus. We've had students who are either already working in biotech or pharma, or they're interested in those areas and they meet the requirements, and they've taken classes at our School of Public Health or in the pharmacy school. Maybe you're really interested in working on a startup that helps to reduce marine plastics. So you should probably check out one of the terrific electives at the Scripps Institute for Oceanography. And if you're not familiar with our campus, you'll see the pier here in the background of my Zoom screen. And that's the pier that belongs to Scripps, which is the Institute for Oceanography. And it's one of the most beautiful places on campus, especially when it's lit up like this at night. I know that many of you are probably attracted by the perfect weather and the laid back beach culture of San Diego, especially if you're dialing in from somewhere cold. But the city, if you're not familiar with it, is a very sort of play hard, but also work hard kind of place. So San Diego is home to a thriving tech and biotech industry, one of the largest defense clusters in the US, and a really quickly growing startup scene. So definitely look into that. I'm happy to provide you with some more resources if you're interested in learning more about the ecosystem here. So let me talk specifically about Rady and the Rady MBA. Despite our youth, we've managed to cultivate a really strong following, a really loyal and super, super dedicated alumni base. And I think one of the most important things that that's allowed us to do is to recruit top faculty who are not only leaders in their field from a research perspective, but have received serious recognition for their teaching. As Kristina mentioned, I've worked at 4 business schools in 4 different countries before joining Rady. And I think that something that really distinguishes us is the quality of our teaching. And so that's something that you can see in all of our rankings, really just kind of, we do way, way better in that field than any other aspect in the ranking criteria. And it's something that all of our alumni just absolutely love the faculty, and they want to come back, and they audit classes, especially during the pandemic when we went remote. We had, you know, just scores of alumni logging in to take extra classes after they graduated with their faculty. So I really think that's a testament of that. Our teachers use a lot, they really use a scientific approach to business, and you can expect a lot of experimentation and a lot of hands-on projects. They tend to bring a lot of their own research into the classroom, which we find helps to bring a lot of the more theoretical aspects of the curriculum alive. Because a lot of our students already do come with a STEM background, for them, it's just an opportunity to geek out a little bit and get to kind of go over some of those things with the faculty. I think the Rady School of Management has a pretty unique foundation story. So it was actually the brainchild of the local San Diego business community, who wanted to ensure that top tech and biotech talent would come to San Diego and that they wouldn't leave to go to business school somewhere else. They were really worried about having top talent working in companies like Qualcomm, Illumina, Intuit, and then they get to a point in their career where they really need to have some business education as they move up the corporate ladder. And they were leaving for places like the Bay Area and Los Angeles. And so to kind of stem that, the company came together and approached UC San Diego. They mentioned that they wanted to create a new business school, but with a focus on STEM and on innovation. They wanted to provide world-class business education that fostered creativity, along with a strong technical skill set that would breed entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs and a talent pipeline for the San Diego region. So we've always been STEM focused. All students in their first quarter take a rigorous quantitative analysis course, and that really serves as the foundation for analytics and operations courses. Later on, when you study, you can study marketing analytics, supply chain analytics, people analytics, and you'll hear me go on and on about this because it is a rigorous program, and I can't promise that it's going to be a cakewalk for everybody, but our graduates really do come out the other end fully prepared to make an impact in the organizations that they join, and with that technical skill set that's necessary to make a difference. Something that's unique about our curriculum is that in our second year of the MBA program, alongside all of the elective choices that you have, all students come together from all of our different cohorts, whether it's the full-time, the flex evening, the flex weekend. So it's the one time that we might make you come to class outside of your traditional schedule. We also have a select group of graduate students from the Jacobs School of Engineering who join all of our MBA students, and they come together to work on teams in this 1-year lab to market course sequence. You'll either work on launching a new business, and we've seen a lot of businesses come out of the lab to market sequence. Often they have, many different incarnations, and they look nothing like the original business plan that people sort of brought or had an idea of developing when they come to business school. And then there's some students who think, I'm interested in innovation, I'm interested in these projects, but I'm not quite ready, or I'm not really interested in being an entrepreneur. In which case you can decide to work on an entrepreneurial project together with a local startup. Often they are companies that have come out of lab to market or out of our business incubator, or you can work on a project with a Fortune 500 company. So companies that we've worked with in the past include Petco, which is one of the largest manufacturers of pet food. If you're not familiar with the company, our local baseball stadium is named after them. FedEx this year, and this year we've also gotten a few companies from Tijuana, just across the border. So if you're not familiar with San Diego, we are about 15 minutes from the Mexican border, and there are actually more Fortune 500 companies in Tijuana than there are in San Diego, which makes it a really, really interesting place to study supply chain. Lab to Market is this sort of year-long experiential course, and it's really designed to, first of all, help you launch a business if that's what you're interested in. But it really is designed to help you tie together and integrate a lot of the learning that you have received over the first year. So you're going to be expected to be able to integrate topics from marketing, topics with finance, accounting. You're going to have to tie all of those together. And it can be an uncomfortable, sort of force you out of your comfort zone kind of class. So definitely don't come to Rady expecting just lecture classes where you can sit in the back of the room and just, put your sunglasses on and sort of get through the class. So this is definitely not that style. So one of the questions that I get a lot during these presentations is, does it mean if you're not an engineer or a scientist that the Rady program isn't for you? And that's not at all the case. So we do absolutely want to see evidence in your application that you're going to be able to handle the classwork. And please definitely speak to someone in admissions if you have any concerns about that. We are definitely looking for a diverse set of candidates who can bring a unique skill set and experience to the classroom. So if you are a humanities major, which I studied ancient Greek and Latin in my undergraduate, and somehow I run business school programs today, and now I'm at one of the most STEM focused programs. We're looking for people with different backgrounds, but you do have to be able to do the math. Some of these people who come in with those sort of arts and humanities backgrounds, they come in ready, prepared to flex a different part of their brain in order to round out their toolbox. And we find that they are often very, very highly in demand by companies who want people who are skilled communicators, who have sort of a critical mindset and are able to do the analytics necessary to kind of back up their proposals. So again, I recommend that if you are worried about whether or not you have the quantitative skills to be successful in the program, please reach out to Kristina or Gerard. They can help chat. They can, sort of help you kind of work their magic, and they can definitely suggest some ways of sharpening your skills if it's been a while since you were in a classroom. The last thing that I'd like to talk about is our STEM designation and why you might be interested in a STEM MBA. So in case you're not familiar with it, STEM is an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. If the academic curriculum of a program contains over a certain percentage of STEM courses, it can be designated as a STEM program by the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. So if you're not super familiar with that, you might think like, why are they the ones to designate a STEM course? And that's because international students of programs that have a STEM designation can currently hold a job for 12 months before they need an H-1B visa. but they can renew that for 2 additional years. So instead of 1 year after a traditional MBA program that you can work in the US without an H-1B visa, if the program is STEM certified, you can remain stateside working for 3 years instead of 1. So the people who directly benefit the most in terms of sort of the career perspectives are international students on an F1 visa who do get that extra time here in the US. But what about if you don't need a work visa? Why do we make such a big deal about sort of STEM? Why do we make such a big deal about STEM MBAs? We're probably not the only program that you're researching, and you may already be researching other STEM MBA programs. So employers and recruiters are really interested in STEM MBAs because even though it is a designation that is granted to us by the immigration authorities, it's also a really strong signal that you have the kind of skills that are extremely in demand today. Business is changing. New technologies are being introduced at breakneck speed, and decision-making is becoming increasingly complex. The pandemic has only accelerated all of that. And the Rady MBA was designed as an extremely analytical and quantitative program. And so this STEM designation for us is a confirmation of the quality and the rigor of the MBA program and the emphasis throughout the curriculum on analytics and data-driven decision-making, along this sort of more general management training and some of the soft skills that a lot of you are also coming to do in the MBA. So what we've seen is that it's not only traditional industries like finance and consulting that are requiring more technical and analytical skills, as you see things like fintech growing and basically anything, and sort of add tech at the end of it. You have prop tech and mark tech and legal tech. But we're also seeing that tech companies are quickly becoming some of the biggest employers of MBA graduates. So Amazon, for example, they were hiring 1,000 MBA graduates a year. And Microsoft and Google are now among the top recruiters at many MBA programs. So tech companies are looking for people who can bridge the tech and business world. And that's something that the MBA can provide, particularly a STEM MBA. So I've talked a lot. I hope that I've given you a little flavor that will help you understand a little bit more about Rady and UC San Diego. But now I'd really like to open it up to everyone. Please feel free to unmute yourself. You can pop a question in the chat. If you would like, you can always just direct message it to me or Kristina, and I'm happy to read it out for you. But anything about Rady, the student experience, or if it's about the application process, Kristina can chime in. No takers. Questions? I did such a great job.
No. Well, I can get a question started because they're prepared. So in my work, I do talk to a lot of prospective students, of course, and I do often hear questions related to focus areas or tracks or certifications. Some come thinking that they absolutely have to choose one. That's a requirement. Others aren't really sure what they are. Can you explain Rady's, what we have and what we offer and how we approach that for our students?
Sure. So we don't have any required areas of focus. And so, we'll invite students to work quite closely with, first of all, the careers professionals that we have. We have career consultants who will be able to meet with you and guide you. So working with them and meeting with them early in the program is a really good idea. And then working with your academic advisor to really plan out what's going to be best for you, depending on what your career goals are. It may be that you are a flex weekend student and you are working already in a very technical company, and what you're looking for is to move into a management role. So probably, some of the best courses to take are things like negotiations, some of our management courses. You may want to take an ethics class if you're moving into a management in a highly regulated environment. If you are on the younger side and you don't have as much work experience, you may want to do an independent study project with one of our faculty members and work on a real life business case that they've been assigned. However, if you are interested in specializing, we do have two certificates currently. One is in marketing. We have some really wonderful marketing professors who do a lot of work on consumer behavior, consumer research. And so we offer a marketing certificate, and we also, through the auspices of our Institute for Supply Chain Excellence, offer a certificate in supply chain. But again, I wouldn't recommend just doing a certificate because you want to. It really should align with your goals. And I definitely think that people should take the time to look at our elective portfolio, look at the offerings, talk to a career counselor, and really understand how you can choose electives that are going to best serve your professional and sometimes your personal goals as well. It may be that you are terrified of giving presentations. In which case, spread your wings a little bit and take one of the storytelling electives that really may sort of not have the biggest bearing on your professional life right away, but it may match some of the personal goals that you set out for yourself in the program.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions? Oh, Satoshi.
So Tatsu has a question.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, Satoshi has one.
Thank you for your time today. And my name is Satoshi from Japan. Let me ask one question about the curriculum. So my career goal is to develop and introduce the renewable energy prostitution in Asia, especially Southeast Asian area. So let me ask you, do you offer the opportunities or classes related to such kind of renewable power stations like offshore wind or onshore wind or solar power stations?
So we don't offer anything specifically on renewables every single year. So sometimes we'll have like more niche electives that are offered sort of sometimes by student demand, or we'll have a visiting professor. But sometimes we do have a lot of local companies in San Diego who work on renewable energies. And so I think Solar Turbines was one of the companies that came to us looking for a group of students to work on a business project with them. And I think that for a lot of students who have sort of like those very niche interests, a lot of times you can do that directly with one of the professors. So either via an independent study, or the other thing is that a lot of our students will take some classes that are very similar in either our global policy school. So the policy school does offer courses on renewable energy, or if you have the technical expertise, doing it at Jacobs at the engineering school.
Thank you, makes sense.
Yeah, great. So in the chat, there are a few questions. So we have an architect with a master's degree with not much technical background. So we don't have any set prerequisites. We will want to see a GMAT score or a GRE score that shows us that you can do the work that's kind of necessary. We'll look at your transcript and see, what's the highest level of math that you've taken. And if we don't see anything in your background, but we're still interested because, architects do have really fantastic problem solving skills. Architects generally have a really good sense of how to work on teams. We may ask you to take an online course and just show us what the results are. And we're happy to work with you on that. So if it's very specific to you and your background, definitely reach out to Kristina or to Gerard, and they can kind of help you like walk through what that looks like for you. And then there's a question about, do we accept TOEFL GMAT after the online application? So yes, although we won't look at your application until you've uploaded those scores. We look at every aspect of the application. Your application is read by a number of people throughout the process. And so, we definitely want to look at everything before we make any decisions.
So if you take the test and then you decide I want to retake it, all you would need to do is let us know, and then we would just sort of put your application aside, and we would kind of open that up again when your additional score is submitted. Or if you just want to hit a specific deadline and you don't yet have your scores back, or you have yet to take the test, that's fine as well. We will just hold off on reviewing it until those scores are available. Got another question. Oh, no more questions. Okay. Well, I have a question. I also get this quite a bit. It's like, I'll get to you, Dan. I'm just gonna ask this quick question. How hard are these classes, and like, what are they like? How much pain is there involved?
So we're all of UC San Diego is on the quarter system, which means that rather than full semesters, we have shorter 10-week terms, and so they go by pretty quickly. I also think it hugely depends on what else you have going on in your life. So if you're a flex student, looking at flex weekend, you have a pretty senior job and 5 kids at home, it is going to be pretty hard to get through your schoolwork. I think a lot of it also depends on the level of preparation that you've done for the program. One of the reasons why we still require the GMAT or the GRE for the full-time program is that, it is a really good prep. So if you've done all the prep work that you need to do for the GMAT or for the GRE and you've gotten a pretty good score, you'll probably be in a pretty good place. And we don't tend to accept people that we don't think are going to be successful in the program. So it's hard. I will say that the first semester or the first quarter is probably the hardest. And then once you sort of get into the groove and back into the discipline of studying, it does tend to get a little bit easier. A lot of it will also depend in the second year on the electives that you choose. So that is, there's some people who take a lot of soft skill electives and you have to write a lot of papers, and that might be more difficult for you. If you don't have a particularly strong quantitative background, you may struggle a little bit in those more quantitative courses.
Dan has a question.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I had sort of a broader question, I think. I think you mentioned that this university or that this graduate program is still pretty new in general. Mm-hmm. I guess I was curious. So this focus on innovation that I was seeing a lot about in this whole, like, I think it's the lab to market project, I think, that you guys have. That looks really cool. I didn't know, is this something that came more out of like the institution's decision, or is this more of like trying to base it on like student demand? Because I think you said this whole program came from like sort of like the industry in San Diego wanted this kind of a program. Was it more from their direction, or?
Yeah, so it was actually lab to market is the oldest part of the program. So it was founded with lab to market, and so lab to market is it's this full year experience that sort of it brings everyone together and puts you through the ringer. The first term is all about learning sort of the methodology of sort of lean startup, taking you through that process, and then the second 2 quarters are really about like, okay, you go out there and you do it. But because the companies that were, because of like most of the companies in San Diego are sort of focused on, tech, defense, biotech, pharma, they really, really wanted to be able to develop students' sort of entrepreneurial and innovation skills. So that's always been a part of the program.
Thank you.
All right, absolutely. Connor.
Did Connor, you have a question?
I think we're having trouble hearing you, Connor.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll ask one of the questions in the chat right now before Connor can, and then we'll get back to you, Godfrey. Someone is following up on Dan's question. So asking if the lab to market is available in the full time, and yes, the answer is yes. The lab to market is actually a required component of all of the programs. And that's actually, I should mention that as well. All of our programs, regardless of when they're offered, require the exact same, requirements. You do need to take all of the same core curriculum with the same professors, the same number of credits are required. So, the idea is really that you're all getting the same education, and hopefully when you meet in some of those classrooms, you'll be able to work together in some of those as well.
Hi, Kristina, that was actually my question. Thank you for answering that.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
That's okay.
Thanks for answering that question. But I also wanted to know, like, since the lab to market is a year-long course, and each quarter is it's required that the students be a full-time student even on the flex programs. Is the lab to market in conjunction to, say, like 3 or 4 other courses that we have to take per quarter?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's the one required course that you have in the second year, and it's a full load course.
Okay.
So just to clarify, for the flex weekend, you'll be taking 3 courses per term, but for flex evening after the first term, it's 2 courses. So it's not quite full time.
Okay, thank you so much.
No worries.
Godfrey.
Right.
Yeah.
Hi,
He's been
good
waiting.
evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good evening. My name is Godfrey from Ghana, West Africa. I would like to find out if working experience is a requisite for Rady MBA, and if not, what's the disadvantage for someone who hasn't worked in the market yet? I'm just completing my undergrad in electrical engineering in Brazil, but then I would like to go ahead and join an MBA program right after. And I'd like to know what would be the disadvantage for doing that.
Yeah, we strongly recommend that candidates have work experience before applying to our MBA programs, because they're really designed to capitalize on the experience that you and all of the peers in the class bring. Even for our full-time students, the overwhelming majority will have work experience. We do let in a very, very few number of students without work experience, but they'll generally have a really strong history either of entrepreneurship, so they've already founded a company while they were in undergrad, or they'll have incredible internship experience. So if that's the case, you may want to reach out to us before applying, just to make sure that we're a good fit for you. Our classroom discussion, they lean heavily on everything that the peers bring to the class. And since we're a smaller program, we definitely want to have as much experience in the classroom already out there in the real world as possible.
All right, just to follow up on that, does the type of startup have any effect? If, for example, if the startup has nothing to do with tech, for example, or it's not,
No.
does it matter?
No, I think it's probably best just to reach out to us for your particular situation, so we can learn a little bit more about you and your background.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure.
Penta? Hi.
Hi, glad to meet you. Could you give me some information about global programs? I'm a corporate funded applicant, and former and a post-MBA job is to manage connecting domestic companies with global investors. So is there a related or instructive curriculum or classes?
Sure. So in the past, and a lot of these have been either on hold or offered in a digital format because of COVID. But in the past, we've offered global exchanges with Israel to focus kind of more on the tech industry and the startup culture in Israel, with China, and with in Mexico, mostly in Baja, focusing on business development and supply chain. Again, because of COVID, it meant that we've done the Israel program remotely, which has been great, and we work with teams of students at a local university, but we've put some of the other programs on hold. Again, hopefully in the fall we'll be able to restart things, but a lot of it will depend on what COVID is looking like. Some of the programs or some of the courses that we have do have sort of an international component in sort of like the cases that you study and the professors that you study with. And then a lot of students who are really interested in international business do end up taking a lot of courses at the Global Policy School, which is just next door.
Okay, thanks.
There's two
Absolutely.
questions in the chat, and one of them is a little more extensive, but I'm going to address the first one. There's a couple questions regarding sort of our average GRE or our GMAT score. I typically speak in terms of the GMAT. We use a conversion, but our average GMAT is about a 660. When people ask us what should they shoot for, I mean, the answer is, you know, get the highest score you possibly can. You know, in not only does that demonstrate your capacities, and for instance, if you don't have a background with any sort of technical expertise or academics, it's helpful to know how you would do in the GMAT quantitative component or the GRE quantitative component. So that is a great way to sort of demonstrate you can do the work, and that therefore it involves studying. The other component of the test is when we see people who really apply themselves to study, we have a pretty good idea that they're probably going to be applying themselves as you know, as hard or as much when they're in their studies. Because, you know, nobody really wants to take that test, but you know, you can, studying works. So if you do put that effort in, we see that as a signal that, you know, you're very serious about getting your degree.
And it's really good prep. I know that, you know, especially if you've been out of the classroom for a while, getting your head back into studying can be a little bit challenging. And if you've hit the books, it will be an easier transition into the program if you've really done your best with the GMAT or the GRE. Christopher put in a question about the core curriculum. We've actually been really, really lucky in being able to offer a lot of electives that don't run full. I think the one exception is usually negotiations. So everybody likes to take negotiations. So sometimes you may not be able to get it in the quarter that you want it, but we run it 4 times a year. And so people usually get in that class at some point. It may not be, you know, the first try, but you'll probably get into negotiations at some point. So Julian is asking about academic work experience viewed versus industry work experience when applying. And that'll definitely depend a little bit on which cohort you are applying for. Whether it's the full-time MBA where people tend to have between 3 and 7 years of work experience, or the most experienced cohort, which is our flex weekend, which is more of our executive MBA, where folks generally have at least 10. And I believe that the average is around 15 years of work experience. So in the Flex Weekend program, we're definitely going to look at your industry work experience a lot more than, you know, your GPA from 20 years before. For the full-time program, because people don't have that much work experience, we do tend to pay attention to academic, first of all, the grades, and then any sort of work experience that you might have. But we do look at these applications holistically. And so we do look at every aspect. So definitely spend some time on your application and definitely highlight all of your skills, brag about yourself in your essays. You know, this is definitely the time to tell us about what an amazing human being you are.
There was a quick question before we get to Ansley. Someone asked the question, I just want to make sure everyone understands. Everyone that attends this evening will receive an application fee waiver. So what we do is we mark your presence, and we know when you do apply, we can see that you attended this event, and we will waive your fee for you. And are we waiving the GMAT this year? Well, we have actually waived the test requirements, GMAT or GRE, for the weekend and the evening flex programs for last year, and we're doing that again this year. It's likely to be a permanent decision. The full-time, however, will still require either the GRE or the GMAT to complete your application. Oh, and Ansley, is that how, am I getting it right?
Yeah, it's Ansley.
Okay, hi.
Thanks. Hi, Kristina and Sylvia. I'm just have a quick question that will there be a job fair for us?
So that's a good question. And I think I can answer that one and also Harry's question around what opportunities are offered through our program. So we do have several different employer events, including a careers fair every year. I will say that more and more companies are moving away from career fairs as a way to recruit students. And so a lot of what you'll be doing, and obviously it'll depend whether you're in the full-time, the flex weekend, or the flex evening, but a lot of what we'll be doing with you and what you'll be doing with our careers team is a lot of workshops to make sure that you know not only how to get your first job after the MBA, but that you understand how to network, how to leverage a lot of your skills, how to use the alumni community, and also how to kind of leverage all of UCSD to get your job. We find that our students go into a lot of different jobs in a lot of different sectors, and a lot of companies in San Diego are actually on the smaller side. So they're not like these massive, we don't get a ton of students who go into, for example, finance, where they have a really structured hiring program. So a lot of these companies are going to hire, maybe 2 to 10 MBAs instead of like 500 at a time. So we tend to work really, really individually with each student to set up a career strategy. Obviously, that will entail going to career events like our annual fair. We also bring a lot of the companies to campus this year, and for the past 2 years, it's all been virtual. But a lot of it is very, very tailored and very, very personal, as opposed to sort of like these mass recruiting events, the way you might have experienced in your undergrad.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks.
Sure.
So, well, we are kind of closing up on the end of our evening, but it looks like we have another question. Benam?
Hi, good afternoon. I hope you're fine. Actually, I have a couple of questions. The first is actually the business development is one of my favorite areas. I just wanted to know if, tailoring when financial markets or capital markets is possible there. This is my first question. The second one is about, actually, since I'm 37, I just wanted to know how range of the age of the people who are participating in full-time MBA is, and yeah, that are my questions.
Sure. So the first question about the finance. So our MBA, we don't typically get a ton of MBA students who are interested in going into finance. We always have some. However, we have a really, really strong finance program because we have an incredible Masters of Finance program. And so our finance faculty traditionally are very, very strong in areas like behavioral finance, financial engineering. So a lot more on the technical side. So it may be, if you're interested on the business development side, it may be interesting to kind of pair up some of the like harder quantitative finance courses with some of our sort of like consumer behavior courses, and some of our marketing classes. That might give you kind of an edge. And then Christine, or maybe Gerard, but you were asking about the average age of our full-time program. Is that was the second question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So I think most students have between about 3 and 7 years of work experience. So you would definitely be on the more experienced side. However, it doesn't, we always get a few candidates who have more experience in the program. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll move through the core curriculum together with the full-time students and then spend a lot of time in electives with our weekend students or with our evening students. Those students tend to all be, they're all fully employed in the San Diego area anyways. And so that's a really great place to be networking with people who have the same level of experience as you do. The other thing is that it may be more interesting to work with one of the careers professionals who is accustomed to working with more experienced students, because companies tend to hire differently for people with the level of experience that you have, as opposed to kind of people who are more early career.
Yeah, thank you so much.
The average age is about 30, just for your reference. So we are a little bit past our allotted time this evening. I want to thank you so very much for coming. We hope that this was helpful to you. If some of you joined us late and would like to watch the entire session, please let me know, and I will send you the recording. Hopefully it'll be done in a few days. And I know you all have my email address or Gerard. So if you have questions that weren't answered tonight, please reach out to us and we'll be sure to get those answers for you. If you did, there's a couple of folks that asked a couple of questions in the chat. I will address them directly because we just couldn't get to them in the group setting tonight. So thank you very, very much. We hope to see your application or at least hear from you soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Happy New Year, everyone.